Hey guys, it's Jacob Mellon. Today I want to talk about what money is and why it's important to know what money is, and you need to fundamentally understand the monetary system that you're in to protect yourself from future headwinds. So, what is money? Money, simply put, is just a medium of exchange or store of value. So, this could be anything that has value in a society, and it's been a lot of things over the years. One of the first things they used was obsidian because it had a utility for them. So back in just like 3000 BC or so, they would trade obsidian as a currency. Other currencies have been things from seashells to cattle in Rome, all the way up to most people know gold and silver has been a long store of value for thousands of years. What people don't know is that it's a natural phenomena. So what I mean by that is it doesn't have to be institutionalized. So there is no governing body or anything that has to come in and say that we're going to use this as legal tender. So basically, whatever people can figure out is valuable to just about everyone, even if someone didn't see it as valuable, if most people saw it as valuable, you would then see it as valuable because you knew you could trade that easily. All right, so let's talk about what makes a money good. It needs to be portable, so easy to carry around. It needs to be durable. Um, so you don't want your dollars made out of like toilet paper, right? Otherwise, they'll just fall apart. Um, Divisible. So, for instance, imagine we traded in gold and all we used were gold bars, right? You would have to slice a piece of gold off and weigh it every time you wanted to spend it. So that's a little bit inconvenient. Right now, when we use dollars, you have basically change that you can go into. Another example for a bad one would be imagine if we only had $100 bills and nothing short of that. So that's not going to work because you wouldn't be able to buy things that are smaller in value. It needs to be scarce, so you can't just easily come by the currency, right? So if it's just all over the place and it's easy to come by, you can go outside and pick up $15,000. It's probably not going to be that valuable, right? It needs to have fungibility. Now, what fungibility means is that you can go in. So, if I gave you a $5 bill, right, and I lent it to you, and you came back and you gave me a $5 bill, but or you gave me five ones, but for some reason the five ones aren't equivalent to the $5 in value. If you're understanding what I'm saying, so basically the currency needs to be equivalent regardless of the bill. So if you have five $1 bills, that needs to be equivalent to a $5 bill. They shouldn't be, any different in value. It needs to be identifiable. So with identifiable, it needs to be basically so you can't just counterfeit it easily. It needs to be easily distinguished as that unit of value. So it should kind of look like the other notes in circulation, um, and it needs to have common value with people. So most people need to see it as valuable to accept that. All right, so now I'm going to talk about what everyone here is used to, which is paper money and fiat currency. So I'm going to talk about how do you create paper money and fiat currency because all none of that was mentioned before, right? Like if you look at an actual dollar bill, it has no value, and people don't understand how a dollar with nothing backing it can have value. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The first thing you do is you tether your paper currency to something valuable. Most times in history, it's been silver or gold that backs that. The U.S. was on a gold standard up until about 1912 or 1913, I think, and then they fully waned off that in the 70s. So here's how you can take it off a gold standard. So basically, when you have that value and it's a good currency, like we mentioned before, what happens is you create a network of users all using the same dollars. So the network effect is basically something that states the value of a product or a service is dependent on the number of people using it. So below I have a picture of the internet basically, and you can see with two computers it's not that valuable. The internet itself is not that valuable because there's only one connection. But as you see, four users gets you six connections, and then eight would get you 28 and so forth. So it's basically saying, it's just stating here that you see in the final picture, the value of the internet at that point has grown tremendously with just 8 users, but the value at just 2 users is lacking. All right, so now what happens after you get that network effect is you're able to detach the actual value from the paper notes. So detach gold from the gold-backed notes, which in the U.S. happened between 1973 and 1976, when you were no longer able to redeem your notes for actual physical gold. So now the value is completely based on the network effect and the supply and demand of those notes. Uh, so what you can see here is if you are printing this money, since it's detached, right? So there's nothing stopping you from being able to increase the supply of notes. If you look at the supply curve right here, so the supply curve shifts down to the right, which basically means there's more supply of notes. And you can see with demand remaining the same for those said notes, the price of the notes will drop. All right. So what happens eventually is rising inflation. You've seen this in the U.S. even all across the world, hundreds of times. And if you look at what you could buy with a dollar back in the 40s or the 50s, it's insane. So slowly the currency starts to get debased in this fiat system. What eventually happens is it's not as scarce as it once was, and less people accept that paper money. So the demand curve starts to shift to the left as well. This is called a flight to assets. It occurs during prolonged periods of inflation. So you can see with demand shifting down, and imagine this is the new supply curve of the notes. With demand shifting over to the left, which means there's less demand, you can see the price dropping once again. Just going to show you guys some examples of currencies that were completely fine and how quickly this stuff can happen. This is the Venezuelan bolivar compared to the dollar since 2010 on the black market. So I don't know if you guys know much about Venezuela, but if you go over to Venezuela, right before you get into town, there is a lot of basically black market exchanges where you can take your dollar or your peso or even Bitcoin and exchange it with these merchants for bolivars. And you literally have to bring backpacks full of bolivars into the country, just to get lunch. It's really terrible what's happened over there. Here's another example, Zimbabwe. So if you look in the top left, $100 trillion is what they were printing as notes at one point. Here's their inflation rates from 1998 to 2008. And you can even see in 2008, they had to start breaking it down by month. It was increasing so much. And this is really caused by a flight to assets eventually. Even if they were to print that much, the notes were just becoming completely worthless, so they just had to print so much of them. And now it's completely worthless. I don't even think they trade in Zimbabwe notes anymore. You can see over here, this merchant has completely given up on using Zimbabwe's currency. And they're saying, no, we're only going to use dollars because that's the only, the dollar's still stable. Look at this. This is someone in Zimbabwe. Look at all that money, and they're out on the street. It's crazy. All right, so it's a little bit inevitable too that this is going to happen. If you just look at the debt, I think it's around $20 trillion in the U.S., which is insanity. And this is not to mention the unfunded liabilities. So right here, unfunded liabilities is money that under current law, the United States is scheduled to spend over our income. These include pensions for federal employees, Medicare, and Medicaid expenditures, and Social Security for future retirees. At usdebtclock.org, federal unfunded liabilities are estimated at near $127 trillion, which is roughly 1.1 million per taxpayer and nearly doubles 2012's total world output. So there's no way they're going to be able to cover these liabilities. And what's worse is that they're not going to change these liabilities because these are basically bot votes, right? Who on Medicare is going to vote for someone that is going to lower Medicaid funding? What federal employee is going to vote for a politician that says he's going to cut federal jobs. What person on Medicaid is going to vote for someone that's going to cut Medicaid? And who on Social Security, or these people that have been paying into Social Security for 20 or 30 years, is going to allow someone to go into office that is going to retract their Social Security benefits? It's not going to happen. And some people might say, well, we'll just raise taxes. Well, let's just increase our revenue. It's not. It doesn't work like that. So here's the Laffer curve, which, this is debatable where this curve actually goes. Maybe this point A is there, but maybe growth maximizing points over here somewhere, and maybe point B is, down here. It's possible, but basically what the Laffer curve is saying, if you put a 0% tax rate in, everyone's going to want to work, right? Or at least there will be no deterrence from working due to taxes. So you can see where B is basically the maximum income that the government can steal from people through taxes. And C is basically saying, so if you tax people 100% of their income, no one is going to work for that. So effectively, you would have zero tax revenue if you tried to have a 100% tax system. And another scary thing, if you don't think these people will just print money like willy-nilly to cover their end, I mean, you're crazy. Here's Donald Trump declared Monday, this is not recent, this is during the election, but the U.S. never has to default on debt because you print the money, while trying to clarify his strategy for managing the national debt. Here's his quote exactly. First of all, you never have to default because you print the money. I hate to tell you, okay? So guys, I just want to talk about, you need to be protecting yourselves through physical assets. People in Zimbabwe, I'm sure if they had gold, people in Venezuela, if they had gold, those are the people that are okay. Those are the people that are well off. Don't think it can't happen to you, because it can. It's happened in the greatest civilizations in the world. It's happened in Rome. All over the place this kind of stuff's happened, where they debase their currency and it eventually leads to their downfall. It's almost the same path every time. Unfunded liabilities, things they can't pay, and their government is just overexpanding to a point where the economy can't sustain that. So anyways, guys, I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin in some future videos, ways you can protect your assets, and just financial management. So if you guys want more, like this video, subscribe, share it. All right, talk to you guys later.